The background to the name itself, it tolls for thee. I borrowed it from one of my favorite poems by John Donne, an 17th century English cleric. It read, part of it read, any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never sent to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. He's talking about the custom of funeral tolling, where the bell sounds very slowly to mark a funeral service or a death. So I borrowed the title from that poem, It Tolls for Thee, because this is a very somber poem, because it talks about the demise or the slow demise or the slow disappearance of the freer people. The freer people have been around Mombasa since the 19th century as ex-slaves who were rescued by Royal Navy ship and settled on the Mombasa, the Kenyan coast in Mombasa, at a place called Kisimani, and the name Freetown came from Sabato Freer, the man who essentially ended the slave trade, the Zanzibar slave trade. So without any further ado, let me read from the poem itself. So it goes. The bell tolls for thee, a poem was once told, to warn a people's Sabato free in a freer town thus called, of Arab slave traders oncoming with hearts brute and cold. From Nyasaland they came, Botella a popular name, a freer trade now known in all but official name. Inhumanly treated from land to sea, the bell a welcome safeguard, to toll from Kengeleni to Kisimani, the final rearguard. Slavery was later gone, so came a church in tow. The bell to now summon a people in prayerful tow. All of 300 kilograms in weight of history and copper, its myth would grow. Often as things go, the bell will have a prize. With muted tolls it would go, a molten prize belittled in worth. Almost 200 years of history gone, a bell signifying a community's birth. Then came a replica for hopefully 200 years more, in an area now seemingly patrolled that will grow, in circumstances inadequately probed. A culture punitively robbed from a people deservedly freed, with little hue and cry from a society now accustomed to greed. There's no respite from suffering for a people stolen from Nyasaland, for they must now denounce their heritage to really belong to this motherland. A bell will finally toll to close an eroded chapter for a freer tribe so constantly wronged by enslaver to modern day captor. Yeah, so that's the poem. And to explain verse by verse, the footnotes to it is that Freetown is in present-day Kisimani area, Mombasa, a settlement for freed slaves, rescued from Arab slave traders by the British Royal Navy in the 19th century, while aboard slave vessels on their way to the slave market in Zanzibar. There were notably two slave settlements around the Kenyan coast, one in Freetown and one in Rabai. The difference between the two is that those settled in Rabai were settled to an existing community. So they went in and learned or intermarried and borrowed from the Rabai way of life. Those settled in Freetown, Freetown was just bare land, and at the time it extended all the way to Nyali, Komani, the place we are in now. But it was bare, and the settlement had to come from basically scrap. And for that to happen, the British brought in former slaves who were earlier settled in Bombay, India. They are actually black ex-slaves from Bombay who came then to become teachers, builders, carpenters, because the mode of resettling slaves back into communities or in new settlements was to teach them those skills. The ones who were adept to writing and learning English became teachers. The others who were skilled became carpenters and taught the recently released slaves that kind of metal work and carpentry and such, masonry, the kind of skills necessary to bring up a new settlement. So you've heard of me talking about the bell having been stolen. So it was stolen twice. The original was made of copper and weighed 300 kilograms. It was stolen sometime in the 1970s or 1980s, almost 100 years after it was first erected. The bell itself was erected by the Church Missionary Society to warn the recently rescued slaves from oncoming slave traders. At the time slavery was abolished, but on paper. In reality, it still went on, and slave raids were common. So the bell, now a monument, not exactly the original bell that existed then, was put there specifically by the church. Whenever there was an oncoming slave ship, news would move from Kilindini Harbour and everywhere. So the bell was very loud, and it warned all those in the freer settlement all the way into the hinterland of oncoming slave traders, and everyone would go into hiding. So the poem is really a somber poem talking about all to do with how evil, how sad slavery was. And then the last part, I talk about the problems the freer people have faced in settling into the Kenyan community. They have been here for as long as any other community has been legally recognized by the British colonial government and subsequently by the Kenyan government. But they have never been recognized as an official Kenyan tribe. They still have problems in accessing identification cards. They have to either claim to be the Mijikenda who they interact with, or any tribe along the coast. So they haven't really gotten that recognition. The initial land they were settled in, as I told you, extended all the way to where we're seated now. But Freetown, as it is now, is just a small area with a population of the Freer themselves are less than 5,000 currently in number, because things like intermarriage. And intermarriages are of course common. If you interact with if you live among any existing tribe, you will intermarry. But for them, it was a necessity so that they could belong. Because outside the formal settlement, as they were settled by the British, they were not really accepted by the Swahili, the Mijikenda, because they felt these are people who just come to take our land, take our opportunities. More like all the issues that we see face the modern nation with their attitude towards immigrants and refugees. So these are problems that the freer people faced. So you probably ask, so who were the freer people? You know them, only that you don't know they are freer people. You've heard of Leonard Mwamburi, a famous broadcaster. He is a descendant, he's a third generation slave descendant. Those are the freer people. They came from all these areas, from Tanganyika, from Nyasaland. Nyasaland is modern day Malawi, Mozambique, Zambia, Zimbabwe. So the essence of the British settling ex-slaves in just a new settlement is slavery takes everything from you. Your origin, your culture. Because we're talking about slaves. Some slaves were children. They could not have been able to trace their way back home. That was the idea behind settling them in just a new area slaves among ex-slave, to have former ex-slaves to come as teachers. So the children themselves could look at the ex-slaves and see, this is what we could become. We could succeed in life in the way those ex-slaves from Bombay, in their view, succeeded. Yeah, so that's my poem, and it's basically a cry from the freer people to call to attention the Kenyan government that, hey, as we recognize, not to point to name other tribes that have recently been accepted into the Kenyan system, but we have accepted the Kenya Somali, who are fairly recently, immigrated into our lands. But we are talking about people who have been here for 200 years. So why do they not get the recognition they need? They know no other home. Yeah, that's what my poem is about. Yeah, and I'll be able to take any questions now.